Hello, and welcome to the Telescope Show. We laugh, we discover God, and we totally nerd out. Welcome to the show. My name is Matthew Seipel Anderson. Katie, who is normally my co-host, is sick, and honestly, I'm sick too, but Katie completely lost her voice. So, Katie, we miss you. We wish you were here recording, but the show must go on. Today's episode is part 3 of our interview with Dr. Richard Hammar. He's an astrophotographer, astronomer, lawyer, man of many talents. Our conversation's very fun. We talk about all kinds of different things. Elon Musk, talk about satellites, talk about the history of astronomy, and a little bit about faith. It's a lot of fun. But first, folks listening, did you know that Spam has released a limited edition Figgy pudding flavor? That's right. We joked about Spam on our last episode, and so I looked it up again, and I found this Figgy pudding special edition, and it looks magical. It's not Figgy pudding. It's Spam that tastes like Figgy pudding. Here's a quote from this article on npr.org. The new seasonal Spam includes additional, quote, fig and orange flavors, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, ginger, and allspice. And as ever, it is shelf life stable in case of the apocalypse. So there you go. Go check out some seasonal Spam. Well, if you own a St. Nick costume, you can go hang out at SantaCon. Yeah, I've been to some different Comic Con events. However, I have never attended a SantaCon. SantaCon is just basically a big party where people dress up as Santa Claus. Now, I thought it was funny, but then when I went to their website, I was amazed to find that there are over 30 locations hosting a SantaCon this year, so apparently it's catching on. Well, this is a science episode, so I thought it would be fun to bring in a little science news. There's been a historic breakthrough with fusion technology. Pretty awesome. If you remember from Spider-Man 2 in the original Spider-Man movies that were released by Sony, Dr. Octopus was trying to create or harness the power of the sun in his laboratory, and that's exactly what fusion is. Fusion promises to be a clean energy source that could literally power the globe and not produce any harmful waste. That's far way off, but it's still cool to see that there have been some breakthroughs. All right, with that, let's jump to our interview with Dr. Richard Hammar. So I love this bio that's on your website. It says, attorney, financial expert, and author by day, astronomer by night. Richard Hammar is a premier astrophotographer in the Springfield, Missouri area. You can follow his journey here on this website as he takes photos of the heavens and tells his story of faith and family. That's such a great bio. It sounds like a superhero bio.
As Johann Sebastian Bach said, when he was complimented on his musicality, he would always say, anyone that tried as hard would do as well.
People who know you, Dr. Hammar, may know you as CPA and attorney. However, you are an astronomer by night. And that's why I wanted to reach out to you, because I thought it would be a great fit for this show. Your website is called seetheglory.com. Tell us about some of the things we can find on your website.
It's seetheglory.com, seetheglory.com. Mine is different than most because my website, because number one, I've taken all the pictures that you see. There's 150 pictures I've taken. Some in the earlier days of my career as an astrophotographer, but many in the more recent days and years. I've had a couple of my pictures selected by NASA as their photo of the day. I've had pictures published in Astronomy and Sky and Telescope magazines multiple times. So it's just such an honor to have that recognition. But anyway, all of that is on the website. And since I taught for 15 years astronomy at the collegiate level, I did learn a lot in the process. And so that helps me in preparing my website. I don't just slap a picture up there. I give a description, 2, 3, sometimes 4 paragraphs. What is it that we're looking at here? Why is it the color that it is? How far away is it? How wide is it? What's its width? So I give more color, I think. I think I give more information, because most people just don't have it. And mine is also unique because I have a number of recordings on it. I have a whole semester of my teaching at Evangel University, astronomy. You can access that on the website. I think I also have an audio version. Anyway, so I've got a lot of audio and video. In fact, the video I did a few years ago with Pastor Rob Ketterlink in Minneapolis, boy, I look at that a couple times a year. That went viral on the internet. It's 24 minutes. One prominent theologian said it's the best 24 minutes you'll ever spend is watching that. So it's right there on the start page of my website. So I'd really encourage you to go to that. So anyway, it's kind of multifaceted, and I've enjoyed doing it.
So I would imagine that as an astrophotographer, you don't get asked to photograph a lot of weddings.
That's right.
How do you take these photos? I for someone like me, I understand there are these large telescopes that you actually walk inside. How does this work? How do you take a picture of the stars like you would put on your website?
Well, keep in mind the challenges are many and deep. In fact, it prevented me from pursuing this desire to memorialize the glory of God on the internet. I spent years trying to learn how to do this, years of failure. I talked to my wife night after night, coming in depressed and shuffling my feet, and I can't do this. But I was driven back by the desire to take images of God's glory. And that's what Paul said, the love of Christ constrains me. And that's kind of what it was with me too. So I overcame. What happened was I went to Kitt Peak National Observatory in Tucson, Arizona. They had a program there for photographers. And so I hooked up with a professional photographer, astrophotographer, spent a night up there. And that really was kind of a breakthrough for me. And I came back, and within a few months, I had NASA recognize one of my pictures as a picture of the day. So that was kind of neat. But anyway, so how do you do it? The thing you need to understand about taking a picture of the universe is, you go out, you lay on a blanket on your back in the summer and look up at the sky. And what does it look like? It looks like we're the center of the universe and everything is rotating around us. You would swear that that's what happened. That's why it took 15 centuries, for Copernicus, up until the 15th century, to say, hey, that's how it looks, but we got this all backwards. We're not solid, stationary, and everything's going around us. Everything we're looking at is stationary, and we're the one that's rotating. That was considered utter idiocy. And that's why the Catholic Church didn't really pay much attention, because this is so absurd. Right? And it was true. Very, very, very few people believed him. And he was presented his first copy of the book on his deathbed. So he escaped any censure by the church. It did come later, by the way, where his book was banned by the church and only released, and Galileo's major work as well, was only released from the banned book list. What was it, in 1992 or something, by Pope John Paul II? So that was kind of an amazing thing. But anyway, when you look at the heavens, it's just amazing that appearance that we're stationary. And who would think otherwise? Who could say, well, that's how it looks, but that's not the way. Copernicus was one of the great scientists in the history of the world, because he took something that was so obvious and unquestioned and said, we got this backwards. It's totally wrong. So there you go. That's really helped me to realize you got to be very careful with your conclusions, because you may not be right. But for astrophotographers, that motion of the heaven is called the diurnal motion of the universe above you. That's got to be compensated for, because you're not taking a thousandth of a second picture of the universe, of a planet or whatever. You're taking pictures. In my case, some of the pictures I take are literally 15 hours long. Well, how do you do that? Well, you take maybe an hour every night for 15 nights, maybe two. And then you stack them with software to bring about the ultimate result. It's an amazing thing. But I'll tell you, the hardest thing about it is learning how to offset the motion of the universe rotating around the Earth and to make it fixed and solid so that a star in the corner is going to look pinpoint, not with a trail on it. That is a very, very difficult skill. And so it's something else that I've done. The other, that's the main challenge to astrophotography. The second is light pollution. I mean, I've had world-class telescopes, a 15-inch Ritchie Cretan telescope. Are you kidding me? And it's crippled, it's hampered because I can't take full advantage of it because my driveway is so light polluted. and so I searched for options. I can't move this out into the country. There's 500 pounds. So I can't set up a permanent observatory because of housing covenants in my neighborhood. So I finally decided I've got to leave the area. And so that's what I did. I sold it to a consortium of professional astronomers, 6 others. I'm the 7th. And I held back a share for myself. So there's 7 of us that are co-owners of my telescope now. And we put it on a mountain in New Mexico, 7,500 feet elevation. And there it sits. We have an IBM executive who's one of the members of our group who spent the better part of a year getting that set up. I mean, this telescope, you've got to be able to point that by entering an object like NGC 2419 and then hit go. It's got to go not just into the vicinity of that object, the intergalactic wanderer, but it's got to put it on the crosshairs of the telescope. You think that's easy? That is an exceedingly difficult challenge. But you've got to be able to do that to orient your picture and then to start taking long exposures and have the telescope shut down an hour or so before sunrise and be back the next night, an hour after sunset, and start it all over again. So it's a real challenge. And then you've got the software. So I've taken all these pictures. How do we process them? In my case, I take pictures in red, green, and blue filters, sometimes ultra hydrogen alpha. And I combine those different colors into one master, beautiful image. So so many times I sit at my computer when I'm working on an initial run of processing, and I look at the results, and I just am staggered. And I just hope other people feel the same way.
That's amazing. I've never known much about that process. It makes sense that it's so difficult because, like you mentioned, there are so many factors and so many literally moving pieces. The Earth is spinning and it's moving through space in its orbit around the sun. I'm sure that's a factor because...
Think of all the motions.
Yeah.
And you're going 70,000 miles an hour right now, just sitting there.
Uh-huh.
And that's why Copernicus was considered to be a complete, almost mentally unbalanced. If we're going 70,000 miles an hour, how come I see clouds up there? What about the leaves on this tree over here? Have you ever stuck your hand out of a car going 70 miles an hour? Well, 1,000 times more than that, it would rip it off. Uh-huh. So the church said, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, and furthermore, an object in motion cannot have something orbiting around it. And Galileo, 50 years later, proved that was wrong with his telescope. He trained it on Jupiter, and he was shocked to discover that it in fact had 4 major moons. We call them Galilean satellites going around it. And well, if it could happen there, it could happen with the Earth or the universe. And so that major argument of the church was completely undermined by Galileo. And he brought his telescope to one of the Vatican colleges, and they refused to look at it.
Wow.
So some did, not all. And so it's quite a history.
And that controversy is a great example of a doctrine clashing with science, but not necessarily scripture clashing with science. It's a particular interpretation and a doctrine that eventually changed, but it didn't really affect scripture at all.
Yeah, I heard somebody say once that the Bible, scripture, and nature are perfect, but science and theology are man's constructs, and there can be errors, and often are. But I encourage anybody on a nice, clear, moonless summer night to put the blankets out, get the kids, and look up at it, because you're going to see a lot of interesting things up there, including a number of satellites going around. And that's something I should mention with regard to astrophotography. Elon Musk is sending up probably 30 to 40,000 space satellites into space. When these things, there's only been several hundred at this point, but already they're beginning to have a negative impact on astrophotography. Because when you're taking these uber length images like me and the top level imagers, it's inevitable you're gonna get hit with one of these satellites that's going to cross your field of view and ruin your picture. So that's becoming a concern to astronomers worldwide, and there's no simple solution to that.
I mean, maybe you can move your telescope to the moon once they go back to the moon and establish a permanent presence there.
It has been speculated for a number of years that the ideal location for astrophotography on a professional level is going to be the far side of the moon. And I think that will happen. I think Musk is going to probably accelerate that process.
All right, Dr. Hammar, thank you so much for taking the time to do that interview. Interestingly, there are plans laid out to return to the moon. NASA just completed the Artemis 1 mission, which is a step towards a manned mission to the moon that's happening in the next couple of years. I thought this interview with Dr. Hammar was very fun. I would love to know if you enjoyed this kind of content. Do you want to learn more about science things and how it ties into faith? I think that's a very nerdy thing and very applicable to what we do on the show, but I would love to know your thoughts. I found it very interesting to learn about the ins and outs of astrophotography, how astronomy and faith tie in together, and just Dr. Hammar's personal journey of frustration, but ultimately learning how to become a world-class astrophotographer. All right, hey, thanks so much for listening. If you want to connect with us, head over to our website, thetelescopeshow.com. We would love to connect with you. You can also find us on Facebook and social media. Until next time, love you, take care, God bless, bye-bye.